leadership changes coming to the Pentagon,
and a preview of AFA.
This week on The Breakout. I'm Aaron Mehta.
And I'm Valerie Insinna.
Welcome to The Breakout. Val, this week we're going to start by talking about some Senate action with some civilian nominees who are heading up to lead the Pentagon. Let's start with Dale Driscoll, who is the Army Secretary nominee, now the Army Secretary.
Yeah, so not really much to say there. Pretty uncontroversial nominee. He was voted through the Senate last week, and then very quickly after that was sworn in as Army Secretary. He's now the first service secretary to be sworn in under the Trump administration.
Yeah, and now that means the first civilian besides Pete Hegseth to be sworn in. So that's all set in the Army. We had a couple of hearings last week for other people to come in. Let's start chronologically. We'll go with Steve Feinberg, who is the Deputy Secretary of Defense nominee. The Deputy Secretary, of course, is kind of the Pentagon's manager, the kind of internal worker of things there. What did you hear from that hearing?
Yeah, so Feinberg, he comes from the private equity world, doesn't really have a big national security background. Most of the questions that senators directed towards him were more of a referendum on the bigger changes that they're seeing at the Pentagon writ large. So things like cuts to civilians, things like the overall purge that we're seeing of generals. Feinberg was sort of asked to answer for those changes. And of course, he kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, I'm not involved in that.
Right.
But this is a question that because he is charged as deputy to handle that bureaucratic leadership, that is a big question of what are you going to do with a much smaller workforce?
Yeah, and it's helpful when you can say, hey, it's not my problem. But I think your hearing there is kind of a chance for senators to take a whack at some of the stuff that we've seen in the first month of the Pentagon under Hegseth.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. So another hearing after that, a couple of days later, you had John Phelan, who is the Navy Secretary. He's a financier, well-known art collector.
Yes.
So what did we hear from that one?
Very, very uncontroversial hearing. It was very normal. Myself and some of the other reporters that were there at the hearing just kind of looked at each other and said, this is a very normal, uncontroversial hearing. Most of the questions were about shipbuilding, about parochial issues that different senators care about that is, related to their states, and not really much beyond that. He's ready to cruise right through, I think.
Yeah, so you say the Senate's hooked on a feeling?
No.
We're going to move on. All right, so the last bit is the Air Force Secretary, Troy Mink. We don't actually have a hearing set for him at this point. On paper, it seems like he's got a lot of experience with the NRO, a lot of experience in the Pentagon itself on space issues. But we heard from a couple of senators this week that they're starting to have some concerns about him.
Right. So Senators Duckworth and Warren both penned a letter essentially raising some concerns with a recent Reuters story. That story alleges that Mink may have, while he was in the NRO, pushed a contract towards Elon Musk's SpaceX, and in return, Elon Musk recommended Mink for the job. Mm-hmm. So obviously, Duckworth and Warren were asking, is this true? What is your relationship to Elon Musk? And I think this is something that other Democrats are going to pick up on as we go closer to his hearing.
Yeah, obviously right now attacking Elon Musk is a win-win for Democrats. So it certainly seems like something that's going to happen. Whenever we do get the hearing, that's going to come up.
Right.
All right. So that's civilian leadership. Let's stay actually talking about the Air Force. After the break, we're going to talk about AFA's winter meeting.
At Leonardo DRS, our agility helps bring the ability to dominate in any scenario, on any platform, helping our warfighters accomplish the mission and get home safely. Leonardo DRS, our agility, your advantage.
All right, so let's stick with the Air Force for a little bit. This week is the Air and Space Forces Association's winter meeting out in Colorado. Usually kind of a big gathering to set the agenda for the year, but Val, we're expecting it to be a little, let's say, more hesitant this year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say. I think typically this is a show that happens right after the budget is released, so you would normally have officials that are justifying what they did in the budget. Obviously, we don't have an FY26 budget. We don't even have a budget for this fiscal year.
Right.
So that's not going to happen. And then, we don't have an Air Force secretary. So I think we're going to see officials that are kind of hesitant to move beyond the, kind of messages that we've heard ad nauseum for the past couple of years. The Air Force is too small. We need more resources. So I think, that's really going to be like the long and short of it, just kind of more restrained.
Yeah, I think there'll still be some news that we're going to hear on the fringes, from industry, some interesting. I think space actually might feel a little more secure. The Space Force might kind of be in the catbird seat here right now.
No, I think you're right. I think the fact that if, Troy Mink is confirmed as Air Force Secretary, he's someone that is bringing a lot of experience in the space arena. So maybe that empowers the Space Force to maybe lean forward. And all the focus on Iron Dome for the United States, that could also power the Space Force to talk a little bit about, well, here's what we could provide. This is what we need to do. So yeah, I think that's very fair to say that the Space Force could be kind of having the upper hand this time around. Which
we all know the fighter mafia will love. So our Michael Morrow is out at the show. He'll be filing regularly, so make sure to check the site several times a day. And make sure to like and subscribe to The Breakout so that we get delivered directly to your door. I'm Aaron Mehta.
I'm Valerie Insinna.
Thanks for watching.